Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully, you all are having a great start to your week. In today's webinar, we will be exploring the anatomy of a Conga Composer parameter and how these are used in your Conga solutions to help you further customize the behavior of your Conga Composer solutions. My name is Theresa and I am a Learning and Development Specialist here at Conga, and I am a part of the Product Education and Customer Experience team. So our team's pretty cool. We get to work with development on just knowing the ins and outs of all of our new products and features. We also work with our business analysts in learning how to create good materials for our customers and partners. So it's a pretty fun team to be on. If you guys have any questions throughout today's session, please go ahead and submit them in the chat window, and we will follow up with you directly after the webinar to help answer any questions you might have. So if you're attending today's webinar, you might be wondering how to take your Conga solution to the next step. Just take it a little bit further, learn how to customize the behavior of the solutions you're creating, and hopefully reduce some of the manual steps that you're currently doing with using Conga Composer, such as maybe every time you're running your solution, you might be having to manually select a specific template you want to use or change the output file to a PDF option manually every time. Using Conga Composer parameters allows you to reduce those manual steps. So you can set up a whole process that can run on its own without you having to manually adjust things every time you run your Conga solution. So we'll dive into that further today. So get excited. Hopefully we'll be able to find some more tools to help you save some time and be more successful. So for our agenda today, we're going to discuss the anatomy of a Conga Composer parameter and when and why you would use them. We will review all of the different categories and options you have using Conga parameters and how to find a list of the parameters on our support site. And also we will talk about how these parameters are incorporated into the Conga solutions. And then actually at the end of that, we'll do a quick demo and just kind of show you how to add these parameters to a solution and kind of customize that behavior. So let's go ahead and dive into a definition of a Conga Composer parameter. So Conga parameters are used to modify and customize the behavior of a Conga solution. Parameters are added to the Composer button URL, and then parameters must be entered into the button URL in a specific format. So these parameters have a specific function and way that they communicate with Conga Composer. So we'll show you how to specifically add these into the button URL. So you can add a parameter into the button URL by typing an ampersand, the parameter name, an equal sign, and the value of the parameter. So they must be entered in this specific format. So the ampersand, parameter, name, equals, and then the value, just as the example shows here on the screen. So the ampersand is required in front of the parameter name. And so this is basically to communicate or notify Conga that you are using a parameter and you want your solution to do the specific function of the parameter. There's also no spaces allowed when you are adding the parameters into the button URL. So you are working in a live URL. So remember, Conga Composer, that baseline of URL is a URL. So if you type any sort of space, it's going to cause an error in your solution. The parameter value will consist of static text sometimes, or a merge field, or a numeric option. And I'll be able to show this to you guys later in today's session, but there's always some sort of value at the end of the parameter to make it function as well. So you can add multiple parameters to your Composer solution. You have the option to add up to 1750 character limit. So you have lots of space to kind of get in there and add and customize your solution and make it behave in a specific way. And we'll show you kind of how to add those multiple parameters as well. But as you can see, they'll all be entered into the same way: an ampersand, a parameter name, and then a value. So I'm going to launch a quick poll here. I just want to gauge what you guys might be thinking of how many parameters there are. So I'm going to just launch a quick poll and go ahead and answer, and we'll see what everyone thinks as far as how many parameters there are that you can customize your solution with. All right, so we've got about half of you are saying are 150. Okay, we've got 50% saying 100. Okay, I like these answers. There's 50. You guys have good imaginations. Okay, awesome. I like where you guys are going with this. So the cool thing about Conga is that there are 150 composer parameters to help you customize the behavior of your solution. So that's pretty cool because we know that all of our customers have really unique needs and have really cool businesses and want to do all these really awesome things. And so we try really hard to be able to have options for you guys to kind of just really take your solutions to the fullest and help you be successful. So we have over 150, and don't worry, we're not going to cover all 150 today. That would be a long morning session. So, but I'm going to show you how to access these in just a moment. So in addition to having over 150 parameters, we've got 22 different parameter categories. So we kind of have them broken down in categories to kind of further help you figure out what you're trying to do with your solutions. So some of these categories include activity logging, output file options, email parameters, saving your documents or templates into Google Drive, template selection, integration parameters. There's a lot of helpful options for you available to use these parameters with. So you might be wondering, okay, great. So how do I find a list of these Conga Composer parameters? So I'm going to go ahead and show you that. So let's go ahead and I'm going to head over to our support site really quick. So you can access the support site if you go to our main website. You can access it by going to support, or if you just visit congasphere.com, that will take you right to our support site. And on this site, you have a variety of different resources available to you. You have videos, you've got options on how to help you start with Conga Composer and build a complete solution. But today, we're specifically talking about customizing our solution. So if you go under our Customize tab, you'll be able to access the information I'm talking about today. So we talked just briefly about how parameters are formatted, how you enter them into the Conga Composer solution. So you can find all of these topics and more just by visiting our support site. Specifically for parameters, we're under Customize, so that's how you will be able to find them later. So we do have a couple options. We've got an index of all the parameters that you can do. So you can, once you kind of get familiar, some people like going straight to this index and kind of just quickly finding the parameter that they're interested in adding to their Composer button. Or you can go by category. So I like to go by category just because it kind of helps me wrap around my head about what I'm trying to do with my Composer solution. So as you can see here, here's the list of 22 categories you have available. Some consist of activity logging for Salesforce. We've got email parameters. We've got our e-signature solution integration parameters that you can use. We've got chatter options, PowerPoint, output parameters, template selections. So we've got a lot of different categories that you can kind of quickly dive into and find specific parameters. Once you get into the landing page for that category, it's going to break down a list of all the parameters available that are related to the category. And then if you click on them, it shows you what that function or purpose of that parameter is. And then it shows you also how to add it into the Composer button. It shows you what value options you have when you're adding these to your Composer solution. You can choose kind of what behavior you want it to do. So it's a really helpful way of just kind of learning the parameters and then just referring back to them as you're creating your solutions. All right, so that's how you get to parameters. We're going to use these categories in today's session as we build out and customize a solution. So I'm just going to leave this window up and quickly go back to my PowerPoint here. All right, so I thought it'd be fun to kind of just show you guys a quick activity or just kind of a demo of how, you would be able to, maybe some reasons of why you might be wanting to use a Conga Composer parameter. So let's say we want to have our Composer solution select a specific template every time we run our Composer solution. So we don't want to have to go in and manually choose this one specific template, we just want Conga to know to grab it automatically. You can do that using a parameter. And let's say we also want the output file to be in a PDF format without us having to manually select that. And then on top of that, let's say we want to change the output file name. And then let's say we want to log that activity on the record that we're running the solution from, saying that we sent the quote. And then also, let's say we want to save a copy of the quote in a specific location in Salesforce, such as notes and attachments. And then finally, let's say we want to go ahead and just email this quote to a specific customer. You can do all of these steps by using parameters, and basically you set this up on the back end, and then it's set for you to run every time. So every time you click that Composer button, it's going to do all these steps automatically for you. You're not going to manually have to adjust these options in the Composer window when you run the solution. So let's go ahead and jump into the activity and do this. So I'm going to exit out of here quickly and just go into Salesforce. So I'm just going to run a quick basic, Composer functionality without the parameters, just to kind of remind you or show you guys how it kind of currently works without parameters being added into that Composer URL. So basically, kind of once you get into this Conga dialog box, you have a few different options, right? You can select your template over here. Every time you run the button, you can say, okay, I think I want this template. Then you can kind of select a related contact. You can manually, pick Adobe PDF. You can choose save a copy. So you can manually, this is also a great option too, because, not every time you want to do the same thing. So this is helpful to kind of customize it as you go. But let's say you've got your solution set and you just don't want to have to do this every time, right? You want Conga Composer just to run with that click of the button. You can do that by setting up all these options in here on the back end by using parameters. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and go into an existing button. So I've got my quote one button here, and I'm just going to go ahead and edit it. So as you can see at the top of our button, we've got the Composer basic lines of URL, which is required every time you're building a Composer solution, right? You need all of these here, or you need this basic URL to actually use Conga Composer. So what I normally like to do is start a new line, and what it's recommended. There's no wrong way to enter in the parameters as far as like order goes, but we do recommend keeping them in kind of grouped categories. So if you have to go back and troubleshoot or turn something on and off, you'll be able to quickly find it if you kind of categorize the parameters as you enter them into the button URL. So let's see. So the first thing on our list to do was to select a specific template ID. So you're kind of sitting here, you're like, okay, great. How do I find that parameter, or how do I know what parameter to use? So let's go back to our handy parameter category list here on our support site. So basically, we want to select a specific template. So I'm going to come to this list here and say, oh, okay, great, template selection parameters. Let's go in there. So you've got a variety of different template options here to use. But so just select a specific template, we've got to grab a specific template ID. So if you're using Conga Composer, hopefully you're taking advantage of the Conga Composer template manager. So this is where you would store all of your Conga templates. And basically a record is created each time you add a template to the template manager. So what we want to do is, if we want Conga Composer to select this specific template every time we run the solution, we've got to go grab that template ID in addition to adding the parameter to the button. So I'm going to click on this here, and so it gives you, a quick little definition of what this parameter does and how it should be entered into the button. So you can see you've got to use the ampersand template ID, and then you actually have to add the ID at the end of the parameter. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy this back end here, and I'm going to go over to our button and simply paste that there like that. So now I need to go grab my ID. So I'm going to just kind of, I'm going to right click here, open up my Conga templates, and from here I'm just going to click in here, and I'm going to go ahead and grab the ID here at the back end. So we just want to double click that back end, grab the template ID here, copy it, and paste it into your solution here. So there you go. You've quickly added a parameter. We grab the specific one that's going to communicate to Conga that we want to grab the specific template that we have stored in Conga Composer. So that was pretty easy. All right, so the next step we wanted to do was to have Conga Composer automatically create the output file into a PDF. By default, Conga Composer will generate the output file based off of what you're creating. So if you've got a Word document, it's just going to automatically generate a Word document. But let's say when we run this solution, we want it to be in a PDF without us having to click that button in that Composer dialog box. So we can do that by using a parameter. So again, I'm going to go back to our handy little list here. I'm going to go back to our categories, and then I'm going to go into output parameters. So this is relating to the output file of what we want created. So output parameters stands for being able to do those options, customize the output file. So again, we said we wanted to do a PDF. So this notes here sets the default output file type to a PDF. And then again, you've got your definitions here. And then we'll go ahead and make the value 1. So this is going to tell Conga Composer that we want the output file to be in a PDF. So again, I was just going to quickly copy, but it doesn't look like this is set up like the other one. So what we need to do is type in ampersand default PDF equals, and then we'll set that equal to 1. So that's going to tell Conga Composer that we would like the output file to be in a PDF. Okay, great. So now let's say we want to also rename the output file. So by default, Conga is also just going to generate that document into Word, and then it's just going to keep the same name unless we tell Conga Composer to use a different name. So let's say we want to do that. So we'll go back to our output file. Again, this has to do with output file parameters. And we want to choose the option that's going to allow us to specify the output file name. So we want Conga to change the name when we run this solution. So again, you've got a good description here listed below with some examples. And so again, what we want to do is just either copy or type this specific parameter into the button URL. So I'm going to copy this here, and I'm going to go back and paste it here. And so when you're looking at this, you can see you can add in a merge field, and they can type in static text. So we're going to go ahead and do that at our end. So I'm going to go ahead and type in quote, and I'm going to do a plus sign. So remember earlier I was saying there can be no spaces in the URL, but we would use a plus sign to indicate there should be a space. So because this is going to be a title of an output document, we want it to read correctly, so we need a space in the title. But to do that, you would have to use a plus sign. So we'll go ahead and do quote for, and then I'm just going to insert, I think just the opportunity name is what I would like to do. So that way, when we generate our Composer solution, it's now going to change the output file name to quote for opportunity name. And that'll just happen on the fly since we're adding in this parameter specifically. All right, great job. So we've already got a few parameters in here. Let's say we want to also log this activity in or on the record in Salesforce. So we could do that by using activity logging parameters. So we'll go back to our category list here. I'm going to go back to parameter categories, and at the top we've got activity logging parameters. So these parameters allow you to log activities in Salesforce as you're running your solutions. You can also update fields as well by using some of these other parameters. So definitely there's a lot of different options you can do. I'm kind of just showing you some basic things that we think customers use on a daily basis. So, but let's say we want to every time we run our Composer solution and send this quote, we want to log that activity on the record. So you can do that by using the activity logging parameters. So with activity logging parameters, when you're adding them into the Composer button, you kind of first have to turn on this capability with Conga Composer. So it's kind of like, hey, I'm flipping on this switch. So to do that, we always have to use AC0 to first turn on that capability for these specific parameters. So this parameter is required, and again, I'm just going to copy this because I can. It'll save time with typing, and you can do the same if you're creating your own solutions. So I'm just going to copy and paste that there. So basically that's telling Conga, hey, I'm turning on the activity logging parameters, and then the next parameter is going to tell Conga specifically what we want to be logged on that record. So we'll go back, and below that we'll go ahead and add AC1. So this allows you to create the subject that's going to be logged. So basically, you can say, quote sent or quote generated. So this just allows to have a subject in that activity section in Salesforce. So you can kind of see what it was that you did. And you can always go in and adjust and edit these parameters as time goes on. So you might have to use a different template. You might have to use a different name or a different output file type. You can always go in and adjust these parameters. They're not set in stone. So that's a nice option as well. But so let's go ahead and tell Conga Composer what subject we wanted to log when we run the solution. So I'm just going to do ampersand AC1 equals, and then we'll type in our own subject that we want to be logged. So I think I'm just going to do quote sent is what mine. I want mine just to say quote sent. So I'm just going to type again quote, and then I'm going to use the plus sign to indicate a space, and then sent, because it's kind of a past activity once it's logged. So that's what I want mine to say. You can do a lot of different things depending on what you need to title your solutions. All right, great. So we've selected a specific template. We've told Conga to create a PDF for the output file. We told Conga to change the output file name. And now we've told Conga to log the activity that we've sent the quote out to our customer. Let's say we also want to save a copy in a specific location and just have that happen automatically, something that we don't have to do. We can do that again by using parameters. So again, under activity logging, you have the option to specify where to save a copy of the merged output file. And by using this SC1 parameter, that's how you would do that on the fly. So it's kind of cool. You have a few different options available to save your output file. You've got attachments in Salesforce, content, Chatter, SpringCM, and then Google. Google is also a cool way. A lot of people like to use Google since it's kind of in the cloud and other people can access it. So there's a few different ways you can save a copy of this output file. So, and again, you have to first turn on this capability with Conga, and then you can specify the location. So we're going to go ahead and just grab this whole parameter because we have to turn it on by using one. We're going to copy it, go back to our button URL, and paste it here. So now that we've told Conga, just like the activity logging parameters up here, we're like, hey, we want to save a copy. We want this feature to be turned on. And now let's tell Conga where we want the copy to be saved. So again, we'll go back to these categories here. And actually, I'm sorry, I typed in the wrong one. So you have to start with SC0 equals 1, and then you do SC1 defining the location. Sorry for the confusion on that. So we'll go back quickly, and I'll show you how we can just quickly edit that. And actually, that is correct. So SC0 equals 1. And then below, we're going to do SC1 equals, and then we'll define the location here. So we'll go back here. We'll type in ampersand SC1 equals, and then you just actually type in the destination. So for us, we said we wanted to do attachments. So we just type in attachments here, and Conga is going to know to save a copy of our document in attachments. All right, and so one last one that we'll add, just a quick one, just in case you want to email out this quote to somebody. And also another cool feature you can do is automatically set up an email subject, so you don't have to manually type in a subject every time you send this email. Again, just making it easier, a few less steps, a few less typing. We could go ahead and use an email parameter here. So we'll go back to the categories here. We'll go to parameter categories. And then under here, we'll go ahead and select email parameters. So again, it's giving us a list, kind of some examples here at the top. And I just specifically want to manually have my email subject populated for me. So I'm going to click on email subject, which specifies the value of a subject field. And we're going to click on that there. So this is how you would enter into the button. So I'm going to copy the back end of this, and we'll go back to our button here. And then I think I just want to call this customer quote. So that's going to be in the subject of the email that I send to my customer, so that they know, oh, this is my customer quote. Okay. Great. So this looks like a really good working Composer solution, right? We've got our base URL lines of URL here for Conga Composer, and then we've added in all of our parameters at the end. We kind of categorize them together. But this is kind of what your solution should look like. And again, no spaces. And you've got everything kind of added in there, so you can kind of do a quick review. But great job. So we were able to add all those parameters to kind of fully update our process. So let's go ahead and save this. And let's go ahead and test this out. So let's go back to our opportunity. I'm just going to do a quick refresh since we made some changes. And then we're going to go ahead and run our solution. Oops, and it looks like I might have misspelled attachments. Thank you for that. We'll see if it actually is smart enough to go ahead and log it there. It might not since I misspelled it. Thank you, Scott, for letting me know. It's kind of hard to talk and type at the same time. All right, so within our window here, you can see that Conga specifically selected the template ID that we told Conga to grab, which is kind of cool because you can hover and you can see the template ID, name, account brief, all the information with it. But see, out of all this list, out of all these templates here in this list, it specifically grabbed the one that we told it to grab, so we don't have to sit here and search for it. And then under our output file options, it automatically selected the PDF option for us. It also selected the email action since we added an email parameter to update a subject. So Conga knew to kind of just quickly say the action is going to be email. And then we've got the save the copy checkbox enabled, but because I spelled attachments wrong, this is actually a good thing to show you guys. So if you do spell something wrong in the parameter, it actually will not work with Conga Composer. So you do need to make sure you're spelling the destination correctly. In my example, I did not, so it didn't know to choose it here. Let's see if we get the option. So even though it didn't auto-populate here, if we would have spelled that correctly, notes and attachments would have just populated here for us. But if it doesn't show up and you've added that parameter, that's a good sign to maybe indicate that you didn't, spell that specific location correctly in your button URL, and so Conga didn't know to grab that because it wasn't spelled correctly. So we're still going to just go ahead and be able to select it though if we did make that mistake, but just you'll want to go back to your existing button and update that. But it did automatically check the enable option that we wanted to save the copy. Now we're going to save it to notes and attachments. And then with activity logging, it automatically checked our box here, and then it updated the subject that we want to log and add. And then if we quickly preview our document, the output file name should also be changed as well, and it should say quote for. And you can see here it says quote for Burlington Textiles. So that did work. So that's awesome. And then finally, let's go ahead and just merge an email. And it's going to open up our email template here, and we'll look for the subject that we wanted to add as well. And there's our subject, and then attached is our document there. So as you can see, we added in all those parameters in the back end, and then when we opened up that Conga Composer solution or ran that button, we were specifically able to have all of those tasks and items updated for us. Now if we go down to the bottom, we'll do a quick refresh. Under activity history, we've got our activity logged like we asked it to, and then notes and attachments since we selected it, but even if we would have typed in attachments correctly, it would have attached it here on the record as well. So that's just some of the cool things you can do using parameters. So once you kind of set that up once, all that stuff's going to run in the background for you, and you're just clicking on that button and all those actions are happening automatically. And if you decide, like I said, not always do you want to do the same thing, but you also don't maybe not have time to update those parameters, you can still manually change things in here as you run the Composer solution. So you're not locked to these specific settings. Maybe say one time out of 10 you want it to look different, so you're just going to quickly manually do it, and then all the other times you're going to be happy with the parameters that are in the background running the solution. You can absolutely do that as well. So I'm going to jump back over to my PowerPoint really quick and just do a quick review. Let's see here. All right, so we talked about how parameters are used to customize the behavior of your solution. So hopefully you guys saw in our demo how you can kind of manipulate or customize that behavior. We also talked about how parameters must be entered in a specific format into the Composer URL. So you've got to have that ampersand, parameter name, and a value at the end. Um, and then you also have to have the ampersand in front. That's required. Otherwise, Conga Composer will not know that you're trying to use a parameter. And also, we learned you actually have to spell the values correctly when using the parameters, because also Conga Composer will not understand that value unless it's a recognized value that we have created. There's 22 different categories available for you on our support site under the Customize tab. Our support site is congasphere.com, and there's over 150 different parameters you can use to customize those solutions. Um, and so just make sure you kind of reference that. So congasphere.com and go under Customize, and you should be able to get access to a list of all those parameters. And then finally, just kind of list some other resources for you guys to check out. We have documentation on our website. We've got use cases of our customers of how they use Conga Composer solutions. We've got quick start videos and things like that. So, definitely feel free to go explore around with our support site. And again, I'll just go there quickly because it's just so helpful and just so pretty. We love it. So it's congasphere.com, and you've got a lot of different resources here. I encourage you to go here and go explore, maybe watch some other videos. Today's webinar is being recorded, so we will post this on our Conga TV section. It'll be listed in our webinar section. And also, since you registered for the webinar, you will get a follow-up email with a link to the recording. So that option will be available. So thank you so much for your time today. Hopefully that was a good introduction for you guys to kind of get excited to explore all the different options with parameters you can add to your solution. We enjoyed having you on today's session. And again, you can keep submitting questions to that chat window. We will follow up with you directly after today's webinar. Thanks so much. Have a great week.